Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Robert Allen, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Gerard Pratt. We welcome the family of Corporal Walter Jones, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. Those requiring a seat, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Corporal Walter Jones. Walter Jones was born in 1894 in the town of Sale in eastern Victoria. He was one of 9 children born to John and Sarah Jones, 8 of whom survived infancy. He worked as a cab driver in the district and served in the 48th Infantry Battalion, a local militia unit. In August 1914, 2 weeks after Britain had declared war against Germany, Jones volunteered for service in the Australian Imperial Force. He joined the 8th Battalion and undertook initial training at Broadmeadows Camp, north of Melbourne. In October, he embarked on the transport ship Benalla, one of 38 Australian and 10 New Zealand transports in the first Anzac convoy. Jones arrived in Egypt in early December 1914 and continued training in the desert camps outside of Cairo. On the 25th of April 1915, Jones and the men of the 8th Battalion were in the second wave to land on Gallipoli. In early May, the battalion was withdrawn to the southern tip of the peninsula at Cape Helles, aiming to capture the town of Krithia. Several attempts to capture the town failed, causing high numbers of Australian casualties. The 2nd Brigade, of which the 8th Battalion was part, lost almost 1/3 of its strength in men killed and wounded. The 8th Battalion returned to Anzac Cove and continued to defend the beachhead before participating in the disastrous attack on Lone Pine in early August. Later that month, Jones was evacuated to hospital on the island of Lemnos. He had contracted influenza in the crowded and insanitary conditions in the trenches. From Lemnos, he was evacuated to England to recuperate. In February 1916, Jones returned to his battalion, which had withdrawn from Gallipoli and was once again training in Egypt. In March, the battalion sailed from Egypt to Marseille before travelling by train to the Somme sector to join the fighting on the Western Front. In July, Jones was promoted to corporal. The 8th Battalion moved north to the Franco-Belgian border. In mid-October, the unit came under German trench mortar fire. Jones was severely wounded in the back by shell fragments. He was evacuated to hospital in England and spent the rest of the year recovering. In January 1917, Jones rejoined his unit in northern France. The men rotated between training behind the lines and being stationed in the trenches. Winter weather made the trench work harder than usual. The battalion's war diary recorded that the ground was covered with snow and frozen hard. The battalion's next major battle was the major German attack on the French village of Lignacourt. In the days after the attack, the 8th Battalion carried out raids and counterattacks along the front line. During one of these assaults, Jones was wounded for the second time, again struck by shell fragments in the back. This was a less severe wound, however, he was back with the unit by the end of the month. In August 1917, Jones fell sick and was evacuated to hospital in England. While recovering, he married Lillian Sarah Watts in London. The couple had a son, also named Walter, but it is unlikely that Jones had the chance to meet his son. In December, he returned to his unit in France. In March and April 1918, the German forces launched what would be their last major attack of the war, known as the German Spring Offensive. The 8th Battalion was near the town of Strezella in northern France. While holding the front line trenches in early May, it came under heavy trench mortar fire. Jones was buried in the trench after a mortar round exploded near him. Wounded in action for a third time, he was evacuated to a casualty clearing station. The staff found that he had minor bruising and recorded that he was suffering from shell shock. He was assigned to a French farmer to carry out agricultural labour while he recovered. At this time, British commanders were planning their own major offensive, which would begin in early August. In preparation, the 8th Battalion travelled south by train to the outskirts of the French city of Amiens before joining the assault on the 9th of August 1918. During their advance, the Australians were opposed by heavy machine gun and artillery fire, and Jones was killed in action. Walter Jones was 25 years old. He had experienced almost the entirety of the war. He was buried near where he fell, and after the war, his remains were removed to Fouquescourt British Cemetery in France. His grieving widow, Lillian, chose the inscription, "Not gone from my memory, nor my love, but safe in our Father's home above." After the war, Lillian moved to Australia and lived with Walter's parents for a few years, returning to England in the early 1920s. Walter's younger brother also served in the AIF. Private Frederick Henry Jones enlisted in April 1917 and also joined the 8th Battalion. He was badly wounded in France in September 1918 and returned to Australia at the end of the year. Corporal Walter Jones is listed on the Roll of Honour to my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who have died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of Corporal Jones and his wife Lillian is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Corporal Walter Jones, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they'll be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today, and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.